look over and the roof had caved in.
And new at 6, we're finding out what it was like inside the car moments before a teen was killed in a tragic crash. Katie Pawlowski was driving home from the airport when a tire from another vehicle hit her car.
And tonight we're hearing from her boyfriend, who was sitting right next to her in the car. He reached out to share his story and his memories of Katie with our Kelly Brennan. Kelly?
This really is one of the saddest stories that I've ever had to cover. A young life, 19 years old, taken so suddenly and so tragically on a night that she was just simply excited to see her boyfriend and welcome him home from a 17-day missions trip that he took to China. Well, today is the viewing for 19-year-old Katie Pawlowski. She was killed in that Parkway accident that happened on Monday night. Now, her boyfriend, who I met with today, has such poise and such faith for a 19-year-old. He talked about being in that car, how the tire hit their vehicle, it blew off from another vehicle, hit theirs, and then created a barrier between himself and Katie.
Well, I was crying and I was screaming at first because something had just fallen out of the sky, you know, and of course the airbags didn't deploy because it didn't hit either of the bumpers. And I said, you know, we're gonna get through this, baby, and I said, you're so beautiful and I love you. And you know, it wasn't calm like I'm telling you this now. I was screaming this at her. I'm like, we're gonna be okay, you know, I love you, you're so beautiful, you're gonna be okay.
Such difficult words to hear. This is video of that accident. Dean says that it all happened so quickly, he didn't realize that it was a tire that hit them. He said his head was pinned so that he was staring over his right shoulder. Then he got to a point he was able to peer through the barrier that tire created. He said he saw Katie's hands were no longer on the wheel, so he grabbed the wheel, steered off the road, put the car in neutral, and then pulled the emergency brake. This is truly just one of those tragedies that doesn't make any sense from any angle that you look at it. Dean says Katie was a wonderful artist. She had a strong faith in God, and she too even wanted to do mission work to help others. She even had a trip planned for this time next year. After just 1 year of college, her life was cut entirely too short.
At some point in our lives, you know, we come to our end. And if there was any wish I had for Kat, you know, coming to the end of her life, I would have wanted her to be healthy. I would have wanted her to be happy and laughing and smiling. And it looked gruesome on the outside, you know, this tire coming and killing the only person I've ever, you know, really loved. But that's the only way I would have ever let go of her.
It truly is remarkable how Dean holds everything together. Today, I also met with Katie's dad and her brother. They shared with me a story of remarkable generosity from this community. I'm working on that story. I'll have it for you tonight on 11 at 11 right after the Olympics. For now, reporting live, I'm Kelly Brennan, Channel 11 News. You just got back from a trip to China?
Yeah, it was a service trip to China and Taiwan.
For how long?
It was a 17-day trip. Half of it in Taiwan, half of it in China, pretty evenly split.
And as you were preparing to come back to the United States, was it planned for that moment for you to see Kat when you got off the plane?
It was all kind of planned. We hadn't really worked out who was going to pick me up or even what time I was going to get there. We didn't know with the layovers and everything. But I figured she would be picking me up at the airport. So it was, yeah, it was planned.
Can you kind of take me back to then, when you get in the car with her? I'm sure you're sharing a lot of stories of your trip.
Well, I was picked up on the curb, the arrivals, and she gets out of the car. She starts running up to me and she stops and she says, "Dean, have you lost weight?" And it was always a big joke. And I said, "Yeah," and then she jumped in my arms. And I spun her around and we got in the car. And I started to tell her a story about us painting children's rooms at the orphanage in Taiwan. All for babies, of course, and she was laughing because I was telling her, you know, what little faith I had in the other people painting. And she's someone who really appreciates art, really likes to paint, really takes her time painting, so she could really appreciate my frustration. And I was holding her hand, and I was telling her the story. She was laughing. Of course, it was 17 days that we hadn't seen each other and waiting to see each other. And it's probably about as happy as I've ever seen her. And do you want me to tell you about?
Just keep continuing to share at your convenience.
And we were probably in the car for 15 minutes or so, just talking. And I texted her father, let him know that we were on our way back to Uniontown. She was going to stay at my house that night. And then there was this big crash, and my head was jarred to the side. And, you know, I look over, and the roof had caved in, and it made a divider between the passenger and driver's side of the car. And I tried to see Kat, and I looked under it, and her hands are off the wheel, and she's not even looking forward. And, you know, the windshield is flying in at us because we're still going, you know, interstate speeds. And it's getting in both of our mouths. And I was able to grab the steering wheel, and I hadn't blacked out, and steered us off and shifted into neutral and pulled up the emergency brake and got us to a stop. And I ran out of the car, I ran to her side, and there was this big gash across the back of her head. And I saw blood just dripping, you know, out into a cup holder. And my hands were just big enough to, you know, cover it all and stop the blood. But her neck was craned in an impossible way. I straightened out her airway, and she started to breathe, but I knew her neck was broken, and there was a long 14 or 16-hour fight in the hospital, you know, where they were taking tests, but they were all confirmation for something I already knew, which was that she was gone in the car.
You're obviously a man of faith and very,
Yes.
Very strong faith.
Of course.
Can you share, were you saying anything to her in those moments that you were holding the back of her neck in the car?
I was crying, and I was screaming at first because something had just fallen out of the sky, you know, and of course the airbags didn't deploy because it didn't hit either of the bumpers. And I said, you know, we're gonna get through this, baby, and I said, you're so beautiful, and I love you. And you know, it wasn't calm like I'm telling you this now. I was screaming this at her. I'm like, we're gonna be okay, you know, I love you, you're so beautiful, you're gonna be okay. And then I started to sing to her. I would sing to her every now and again. And
What did you sing?
the Sore Feet song by Ali Kerr. And it's slow, and you know, it's just something that comforted her, you know.
Can you share the lyrics with me? I'm not familiar with it.
I'd walk 10,000 miles to see you. With every gasp of breath, I grabbed at just to find you. And I climbed up every hill to get to you. And I wandered ancient lands to hold just you. And every single step of the way, of pain, pain, and every single night and day, I searched for you. And that's what I was singing to her while the paramedics were coming.
You saw nothing coming in those moments. You said it fell out of the sky.
Yeah, I didn't know what had happened. There was no anticipation. It was 11:30 at night, something like that. And it ended up being a tire. So it's against this black backdrop. And even after, you know, the roof hit me and, you know, I was looking out the window, it didn't sink in until I was able to assess, you know, what I was seeing, that anything had even happened at all, you know? It wasn't a conscious effort of mine, you know, to turn my head to the side. It was forced that way, and of course she didn't feel anything.
So you never saw a tire. You simply just saw this.
I didn't see anything. I didn't even see the roof as it was caving in, because it was, you know, you figure we were probably going 60, 65 miles an hour, whatever traffic was going, and in the opposite, you know, way, they were going that same speed. So a tire rolling off, coming at us at over 120 miles an hour. You know, there was no anticipation, no warning.
These are some of the cuts and scratches that you have from that?
That's nothing. But yeah, we, you know, we were both pretty beat up, and the windshield coming at us, you know, fractions and splinters. I was coughing up blood for a little while because I had swallowed some of it, and, you know, of course I would have lived like that for the rest of my life if, you know, she would have been fine.
There's no easy way to say this, but this is one of the, as you hear the whole story and it comes together, quite honestly, Dean, it's one of the saddest things that a lot of people hear. Can you make any sense of it?
I've been putting a lot of thought into it. I've been thinking about, you know, could I have done something differently? Was it a big, you know, was it orchestrated in such a manner that none of us could have done anything. And I started to consider, you know, the human condition, and everybody has to go at some point. You know, at some point in our lives, you know, we come to our end. And if there was any wish I had for Kat, you know, coming to the end of her life, I would have wanted her to be healthy. I would have wanted her to be happy and laughing and smiling. And most importantly, I didn't want her to fight. You know, we were in the hospital and everyone kept saying, you know, this is it, you know, this is the test that's going to tell her she can come out of this. But she wasn't fighting in the hospital and she wasn't struggling. And I mean, it looked gruesome on the outside, you know, this tire coming and killing the only person I've ever, you know, really loved. But that's the only way I would have ever let go of her.
What's your faith tell you?
Faith tells me that she's already with me, you know, and that in the last moments, the singular moment, you know, that was her mercy to me to let me live, you know, that she was gone as soon as it hit her, but that she was still able to take care of me, take care of the other people on the road by getting us off of it. And, you know, she was truly a woman of God. And she was a lecturer and Eucharistic minister. And, you know, she had a faith that, aside from all of her smiling and all of the beautiful photos she took, was the one thing in all of our memories that really strikes us, you know? And my faith tells me that she's with the Lord now, and she's on the better end of this.
But can you share what you want people to know or to even get from this? Is there a message for other people to hear?
I'd say that there's only one promise, and it's not one that you can give a family member and not one that's easily given to you. There's no promises about being safe when you drive or whenever you leave the arms of your loved one. The only promise there is that if you know Jesus, you'll get to see them again, you know? And you can be excited for the reunion. You know, everything that we do in this life, you know, whether we're trying to bond ourselves to other people, you know, letting them bond themselves to us, you know, it doesn't mean anything unless you can ensure an eternity with them.